Robin Steans. A longtime public school parent, Robin has spent over 20 years working on public school reform. Robin was the executive director of Advanced Illinois, a bipartisan nonprofit education policy and advocacy organization working to ensure every child in Illinois has access to quality schools. She has taught at public high schools in Boston, San Francisco, and Chicago before going on to earn her law degree. Robin serves as director of Annenberg Institute for School Reform and on the board of Ingenuity, an organization committed to strengthening arts programming in Chicago public schools. Robin is an active trustee of the Stean's Family Foundation, where she helps guide education and community development grant making in the North Lawndale community. Robin graduated Phi Beta Kappa and magna cum laude from Brown University, received her master's degree in education from Stanford University, and earned her law degree from the University of Chicago. She is married and has 3 children, all of whom graduated from Chicago Public Schools. Please welcome Robin Steans.
Good morning. I hope you've had lots and lots of coffee. I sound so much better when you're caffeinated. And it is wonderful to see everybody out so bright and early. That was really an extraordinary video, and I think you're going to see why, after I talk a little bit more, why I'm such a fan of the United Way of Lake County. Not only the fact that they get so many partners involved, but the way they've concentrated and focused the work that they've been doing for over 80 years and the millions of dollars they're deploying to support children and family every year. So I will highlight a little bit of that as we go. But I'm going to start first by saying that it's October, and I don't know if anybody else here is already worried about their New Year's resolution, but I am. And last year I had decided I was going to lose weight, I was going to get more physically fit, so I joined a health club. And nothing good happened, absolutely nothing. I did not get fitter, I did not lose any weight, and then I realized you have to go, which was really very disappointing. But I think in some weird way, that's a nice setup for what we're going to talk about this morning, because when it comes to improving lives for for little kids, to get them really ready for school, and on up through the spectrum, there are things we just have to do. Some of them are easy, they're even fun, they're even joyful, but a lot of them are hard. And we're going to talk about both the easy and joyful ones and the hard ones this morning. And what I love again about United Way of Lake County, you're doing them. You're getting in there and you're doing them. And I'm going to highlight some places where we need more of that, and we do more of it beyond Lake County and statewide. But the first question, the question that I get asked all the time, having devoted much of my life to working in and around schools and on school policy issues, is how are we doing? And I suspect that as informed as this group is, and this is very important, that's not such an easy question to answer. Do you just think about what the last test results are? We all know that's not really the right answer. It's not irrelevant, to be sure. But there's a lot more you want to know about your kids' schools than just what the most recent test scores were. There's a lot more you want to know about your own child than just the last test scores, right? You want to know if they're developing beyond that. Are they developing grit and resilience? Do they have passions? Are they able to explore those passions? Do they get support when things aren't working well? Are they in fact persisting on? Are they able to get where they need to go? So the question, when I first stepped up at Advanced Illinois, which was 8 or 9 years ago, was how is the state doing and what would it take for us to do better still for all kids? And the reality was nobody was taking a look. And that's despite the fact that we've set pretty ambitious goals here as a state. We've said we want the number of Illinoisans with high quality post-secondary degrees. Those could be technical degrees, 2-year degrees, or 4 years degree. We want 60% of adults to have such a credential by the year 2025. And why? You heard Scott mention it. It matters. You want to have a good job, you want to have a job you can support a family on. The higher you go up the educational chain, the better you're going to be. We all know that, and you may hear noise. That statistic hasn't changed for decades. The more educated you are, the more likely to be employed, the higher you're going to make. And if you look at the numbers here, that's only going up. But the number of jobs available to kids who haven't completed high school are not growing anywhere near the rate of the number that are available if you have some amount of post-secondary. So, if that's our goal, if we know that education changes everything, what do we look at and how do we know whether we're making the progress we need or where we need to make more? So Advanced Illinois has started every other year to come out with the state we're in. How are we doing? From early childhood to kindergarten 12 to post-secondary. And you are in a very exciting position because they are about to come out with their 2016 report So you guys are going to be watching, you're going to be listening, and in November, right around Thanksgiving, the next report, I'm going to give you a little sneak peek, okay, about how we're doing. So you're going to look at numbers, I'm going to show you definitive 2014, and I'm going to tell you what's likely to turn up on that report card in 2016, and then you'll get to read the report when it comes. So, does everybody have this at their table? You get a nice little packet, and you saw the Live United, United Way. If you look at the things that United Way is paying attention to and where they're investing their dollars, you'll see it's very similar. What Advanced Point did is it brought together leading educators from the state, both researchers and data wonks, as well as people out in the field. What are the best indicators? There's a lot we need to pay attention to. In fact, Advanced Point's report pays attention to over 50 indicators and metrics. But when you boil them down, one of the things it does is say, okay, what are some of those critical locals? And if you walk, I'm going to walk you up this ladder. Are kids ready? Are they kindergarten ready when they start school? That really matters. And a huge number of kids, particularly kids living in poverty and English language learners, are already far, far behind before they even get to kindergarten. It is crucial to close that gap. More on that in a minute, and applause to Lake County United for working on that. Are you reading at grade level by 3rd grade? That may be the most single powerhouse indicator of a child's future, is that statistic. If you are reading by 3rd or 4th grade, your odds of going on and leading a life that we can all feel good about are much, 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 add a few more in your own minds, greater than if you do not. Again, you can hear that's been the focus of how United Way is using its resources. Are kids ready for high school work as they're leaving 8th grade? A good indicator of that is math. Are they computing 8th grade math level? Have they taken algebra? Are they ready to be successful when they get there? The next is, are kids graduating from high school, college, and career ready? Not just graduating, but are they graduating with the skills that will make them successful as they move into a job or if they move into some form of post-secondary? And then finally, what % are going on to actually earn a post-secondary degree? And if you look at how we're doing, about 1/3 of the kids in Illinois are doing well. 1/3. You can see there's a valiant effort. The only place where there's an outlier is the number of kids who are actually enrolling in post-secondary. But if you go one more rung up, how many actually complete? It's still 1/3. And do you know why? Have you had enough coffee? Am I speaking too quickly? Because in fact, those are the same 1/3 that were getting the skills they needed, developing the habits that they needed to be successful. What we have to do is double that. We have to double that. And that's going to take, that's that health club problem. We know what we need to do. It's just not always easy to do it. So let's go through this a little bit more in depth. So at the early level, in 2014, we were 15th in the country. If you looked at all of the indicators that Advanced Point did based on the advice of educators and smarty pants folks, we were 15th. How many kids were going, that we were actually getting into preschool, the kind of quality and caliber of care that they were getting there, we were doing pretty well. Why? Because you guys know this has been a real effort. You guys remember Pre-K for All, Preschool for All? Big effort, big push by the state, and that really pushed us up. And I don't know exactly what our ranking is going to be in 2016, but I will bet you money it's going to drop. And do you know why? Because when we did Pre-K for All, look at how our numbers grew. That the number of kids that we were actually serving in Pre-K, which we know is a huge enabler of kids starting school, kindergarten, really ready to go. And then here's what's happened. It's been plummeting. And when you look at 2016, it's going to be flat or it's going to have dropped. Flat or going to have dropped, despite all the talk, despite the fact that we absolutely fundamentally know this may be the single most important investment we can make as a state. Our political impasses and our budget impasses mean we can't do something we all know we need to do, and then we're going to pay a price for it down the line. That ladder starts at the bottom. You're going to see growth. Anytime you get growth at the bottom, it's going to move its way up. Why do you see such consistent third? Because we've been very stable for a long time. So you see that if we don't make progress, if we go backward, we're going to pay that price for years and years. It's like the snake who swallowed the pig. That's a huge problem. The reason you see the big red, look for that. I only do it a few places. I could probably do it across this entire presentation. It's a budget casualty. It's a numbers game. If we don't have the money to put in, if we can't get ourselves through the budget stalemate, then we can't make greater investments. More than almost any other part of what we do, the number of children we can serve has a direct correlation to the amount of money we're willing to put into it. There's another issue. It's really, I love seeing the progress that you're making in kindergarten. kindergarten readiness. You have to know how you're doing, and when you realize it's 6%, you think that's just not acceptable. And then when you really focus on it, you've got information feedback, you know what's working. Look at the progress that you guys have made in getting kids kindergarten ready. That's phenomenal. We don't have that information for most districts. Do you know that we test like crazy? Everybody thinks we test too much. But we have no information on the readiness of children. We made big investments, even though we're cutting back in early childhood, whether kids are ready when they get to kindergarten. So how do we know if we're getting better, and how do we know where we still need to put in more resources if we don't have comparable information? So for the first time, and it's not going to be an easy switch, because some districts are doing it and doing it well, some don't have the dollars to do any kindergarten readiness understanding. It's not a test, it's not a pencil and paper, it's teachers observing children's readiness across social and emotional domains, literacy, numeracy as they come to kindergarten. For the first time over the next 2 years, we're going to start to have comparable information across all districts about whether or not our kids are starting ready. And it's going to paint, I think, a very interesting picture, and hopefully one that will improve the way that we support that work. But there's really some great exciting stuff going on here in Lake County, and I don't think it'd be fun. I mean, I don't think that people necessarily realize the kind of success that you're having with your Success by 6 program. I don't know how many folks realize there's a new early childhood center in North Chicago that's serving 250 children that just flat out didn't exist before. So that's 250 children and families getting benefits that they simply didn't have before. And increasingly, you've got more community-wide efforts focused on early childhood. So how are we doing when we get to the next phase? K-12, how do we look? So in 2014, we were 30th. I suspect that in the next one, you're going to see that we are flat. I doubt that we will have improved. That puts us obviously in the bottom half of the country in terms of how well we are serving and the kind of results we're getting for our kindergarten through 12th graders, which is tragic. We're the 5th largest economy in the country. That gap is insupportable. That gap means we're not going to help them. So why? What does that come down to? Well, if you look first at 3rd grade reading rates, they've gone up a little bit. And by the way, we use the NAEP. This is the National Assessment of Educational Performance. So I know we've moved from the ISAT to PARC. This is untainted by that because there's an examination that's been used nationwide for over a decade now. That's actually a very good indicator of where kids really are. And interestingly, our PARC results, which is the new test, are much closer to where NAEP is. ISAT was unfortunately a little bit artificially inflated. I would expect this number when the report comes out in 2016 to have gone up a little bit. So I think we're going to continue to see small, steady gains. That's good. That's certainly better than the alternative. But if we're going to get to 60% of kids truly ready, it's not anywhere near good enough. And there's a whole lot more push that we need to go. One of the challenges is that we have enormous gaps. Now, one of the things I think people sometimes forget, though, is that while we have gaps, we are leaving behind African American students, Latino students, and in particular low-income students. More on that in just a moment. But even our middle-income white students are only about 50%. Only about 50% of them are reading where they should be by 3rd grade and 4th grade. So even our highest performing group, now just to put that in context, in Massachusetts, which is the highest performing state and has been for a while, that's their average performance. So all their students together, and they've got a profile very similar demographically to Illinois. Their average student is performing the way our top performing group is. So we've got work to do, but the good news is it's doable. It's absolutely doable. And just to point out on the income front, it's easy to sort of lose that these are gaps within groups. These are income gaps within the African American community, the white community, the Latino community. And what you can see is that income matters. It matters every bit as much, if not more so, than some of the other demographic indicators. And that should worry us if we're not doing a good job, because here's what's happening to poverty in Illinois. It's spreading. The number of districts now who have half of their students low income, or serving at least 50% low income students, has swollen from 13% to 44% in a very short period of time. So this is no longer just the province of a few of the bigger cities around the state. This is now an issue truly for the statewide. And with that have to come different strategies at the school level, different resources and different supports to think that we can staff schools the same way when you've got the issues that low-income students walk into, that we can keep the same student counselor ratios, that we can afford not to have some of the additional mental health and other kinds of supports for students. I think we're kidding ourselves. we're showing some progress. Unfortunately, we're shifting to Common Core curriculum, so that's unfortunate. I actually am one of those that I'm sure there are people with lots of different views in the room. Common Core was a necessary step. It's going to allow us to teach a fewer number of more important concepts, particularly in math, in a much deeper and truer way, and it's going to really teach kids to think about why math works the way it works, which is going to much better equip them. But it's not easy to make that transition, and it's particularly hard if you're a student who's in the middle of that process to have to shift. So I think this is going to be absolutely great news, particularly for our lowest performing students going forward, but it's not an easy transition. So I suspect that one of the things that's going to happen in the first year or two is that we're going to see either stability or a small dip, which is not uncommon when you're making a change, and when you're making a change that's significant as this is. And as again, you can see, nowhere near good enough. That number's going to have to move, it's going to have to move big. There's been some good news though. The gap in performance, particularly with Latino students, has been going down. Now, I can't tell you exactly why. I don't know exactly why. I will work on that. If you invite me back, I'll try to have an answer for you. But I can tell you that just like poverty, it matters. Because here's what's happening. I don't know if this shows it cleanly enough, but just let me tell you that the number of school districts that are serving at least 10% of English language learning students has doubled. And if you work in schools around the area, particularly outside in the collar counties of Chicago and spreading into Lake County, you've experienced that. I can't tell you how many teachers and administrators I've talked to over the last 8 years who it just happened very quickly and nobody was expecting. And again, it takes different training. It takes different materials. It takes different instructional strategies. And so we are going to have to pay attention to that because the growth isn't, I don't think is going backward anytime soon. So what happens at the high school level? So this is, again, just to be clear, this is not a graduation rate. This is the number of students who are, the percent of students who are graduating and have demonstrated college or career readiness. As a shorthand, what I'm using is, we've always been a universal ACT state. That means we've made sure that every child takes the ACT college entrance exams their junior year. It's actually a great thing. There aren't a lot of states. There's about 12 to 15 states that do that. And I give Illinois a lot of credit, because that means every child from every income background has a college entrance exam in their back pocket. Now we're switching over to the SAT, but the hope and the expectation is we're going to continue to underwrite that for all students. So if you get a college-ready score on 3 or more of the subject areas, how many of you have high school students or have high school students in your house, so you know what I'm talking about? Right, there's 4 subject areas, and you can get a college-ready score, which means your child has a 50% chance or better of getting a B in the college level equivalent course, or 75% chance of getting a C or better. I know we expect slightly better of our children, but so we pull that against them with all the data. But if you get a college-ready score on 3 or more, that's a very good sign. So what this is the percent of high school graduates who earned college-ready scores on at least 3 of the ACT indicators. And that number is 31%. I'm expecting that number to go up when you see the next report. It's not going to jump a lot, and unfortunately, I think it's going to be driven not by higher ACT scores, but by higher graduation rates. So we're going to have more graduates. The number of those that are earning college readiness scores on the ACT is probably going to hold about steady. That's about 38% of students who take it. That doesn't sound great, but let me give you good news, which I try to do whenever I have some to give. The good news is we're one of the few universities left all students taking it. Most states, it's only college-bound kids who take it. When you look at states like ours, where every student is taking it, we have been the top-ranked state nearly every year since we've been giving it to all students. And the performance on the ACT has gotten better. So that is a credit. And the fact that everybody's held to it, I think, has also helped sharpen and focus. So I would expect that number to go up. That's great news. But again, it doesn't need to go up to 32 or 33%. It needs to start moving at a much more rapid clip. More students are graduating from high school. I expect that number is going to rise again this year, as I said. I'm going to give you something exciting too. At the end of October, the state releases a report card on every school in every district in the state. It used to be really tedious stuff. It was about 20 pages long, and even people like me who were paid to read it either didn't read it or only understood about 2/3 of it. And I'm overeducated, and I still don't understand all of it. So what the state did was, with some help from the State's B20 Council, Advance Illinois, other groups, Voices for Illinois Children, which Kathy Rigg was there at the time, was we revamped the report card to say, what do we really want to know? And how do we present it in a way that parents understand it? And one of the new data points that's in there now is something called the freshman on track rate. I don't know, has anybody heard of that yet? Is that penetrated? Okay, a few. This is something worth paying attention to. I'm going to give you, you want a sneak peek on what our graduation rate is going to look like in 4 years? Look at the freshman on track rate. The Consortium on Chicago School Research looked and said, what's the best predictor of who's going to go on and graduate high school? And there are lots of things. Certainly if you're reading by 3rd grade or if you have a strong attendance record, but it turned out the best predictor was kids who were on track after freshman year. They had passed their major courses and they didn't have to be held back. Freshmen on track. And so if you look at that number, it's turned out, now it's that indicator's been around for 15 years. Chicago looks at it religiously, and you'll see in a minute what's happened to their graduation rates, but it's turned out to be a very accurate predictor. So the good news is the freshman on track rate for the state looks like it's going to go up, and I'll even give you better news in just 1 second about some of the freshman on track rates and graduation rates here in Lake County. So in the future, if your kid's still in high school, or if you're in an elementary school looking at your neighborhood high school, don't just look at some of the past stats, look at the thing that's telling you how whether your school is pointed in the right direction and things are going to get better. The other good news is more kids are taking college-ready courses. It is really helpful for kids to take AP courses or IB classes or community college courses for college credit. And honestly, while for AP, for example, you want your kid to get a passing score. I know we certainly did. But what matters is that they take the class. There's really strong research that kids just need exposed to what that college kind of, because it's much more reading intensive, you do document-based reviews, that in fact better prepares kids whether they earn a 3, 4, or 5 or not. Now the good news is we both have more students taking them, and I expect both of these numbers to go up again in the coming report, but we also have more students earning a 3, a 4, or a 5. So graduation rates. As I mentioned, Chicago was one of the first to realize that paying attention to how freshmen were doing and then helping them turn things around was going to dramatically improve. They moved from having one of the worst graduation rates in the state. Fewer than half of their students were graduating back in 1999, and in 15 years, 69%, and actually the most recent numbers were 73%. And their freshman on track shows it should be growing another 5% over the next few years. That's huge. There is equally wonderful news to boast about here in Lake County. So from 2011 to 2014, Waukegan's graduation rate rose from 68% to 79%, which is impressive. North Chicago from 50% to 68%. Zion from 74 to 84%. That's great news. And I don't have all of them off the top of my head, but I do know that North Chicago's freshman on track rate suggests that its graduation rate is going to grow another 4, 5, or 6% over the next 3 years, which is terrific news. And it sets us up for what happens next. So post-secondary, we rank 25th. We're right in the middle. And unfortunately, we've been dropping a little bit. And my fear is that when we come out next, and rankings are hard because there's so much other data just beyond Illinois that gets factored into that. But I wouldn't be surprised if we stayed the same, and unfortunately, I wouldn't be surprised if we fell. And we'll get to that why in a minute. First of all, it's important to note that one of the things that we're doing well here in Illinois is if you look at the demographic makeup of our high school students, the same basic ratio of African-American students, Latino students, are actually going on and enrolling in college. That's great news. I think it's easy for people to miss that and forget that. We are doing a much better job as a state setting people's sights on post-secondary. 2-year, 4-year technical. We're doing a much better job, but you know we're not doing a better job in making sure those students complete. So if you look over on the right, the percent that actually complete college is dramatically lower for students of color, and in specific for students low income. It doesn't matter how college ready you are going into post-secondary. If you are a low income student, your odds of completing, even if you're at the top of your academic game, are just less. And that says a whole series of things, not only about affordability and what we need to do to make sure that that's not our price reach and that minor financial hiccups in a child's home life or personal life doesn't disrupt, but also the supports that need to be there for students who may be the first time goers and don't maybe have some of the understanding parents and support that many of us in this room enjoyed. And that's a real problem right now. Illinois is becoming less and less and less affordable. What this graph shows is the percent of a family's income is needed to pay to just send a child to a 4-year public institution in Illinois. Now obviously going to community college, which is where about 60% of our students are being educated at the post-secondary level, is more affordable. we've got a whole lot of things that are going on here. First of all, we haven't raised the monetary assistance program, which is the state's financial aid for college students, hasn't gone up. It used to be the best in the country, but we haven't raised it in years and years and years. And I think you all know that in past years, we haven't even paid it. The budget impasse, one of the casualties were one, the entire budget of universities, and two, the MEP grants. Now many, and I don't know how many people here are from community colleges or colleges, and many valiantly, God bless them, fronted the money for students. So MAP wasn't getting paid, but many, if not most, that first semester said, you know, surely the state will come forward with the money, and we're going to go ahead and let you start and assume that the state's going to make good on that payment. Am I right? And then it came second semester. And a whole lot of those same places said, I just can't do it again. Some could. But you can imagine how that works, right? Some are better healed. University of Illinois has more to fall back on than most community colleges. So most community colleges were in a very tough position having to do that second semester, and many couldn't. And we still don't know. I called just yesterday with the head of the Student Assistance Commission that manages MAP to find out if they've got accurate numbers at this point about how many students dropped out, couldn't come back because they didn't have the money. Community college had to say some number, and some four-year student, I'm sorry, but now you're going to have to come up with the money. And they couldn't, and so we lost them. And you know the truth is, it's going to be that much harder for them to get back in if they ever do. It's tragic. Again, it's like early childhood. How could you possibly argue this isn't the best use of money? These are kids who have qualified, we know they've got need, they've been accepted, it's a game changer. You saw those employment charts. And we let that slide. We did not go to the health club on that day. We let that slide. So it's already a problem, we're already not making it affordable enough, and then when we create this budget uncertainty, we're absolutely killing it. So, moving on. And I'm going to be done in 3 minutes, so if there's any questions, or just outrage over some of these things. Did I mention, oh yeah, you saw it, that was the budget casualty. I think I missed another one along the way. That one probably should have been even bigger, that in early childhood. Maybe should have taken up the whole page. So what issues lie ahead? Well, as you can see, I think the state budget is a huge problem. And I'll tell you, even K-12, which went ahead and got funding very late, but theoretically on time for the school year, this is my own background, is a huge problem because, and how many of you are here from the K-12 system? Last year, we did something unprecedented, unthinkable as a state, and I would argue immoral. We cut school funding in the middle of the school year. We said, here's your budget, which, by the way, wasn't nearly as much as schools needed to do what they need to do. More on that in a second. And then in the spring, for the last quarter, we said, we're going to give you even less than we said we were, by about 3%. In the middle of the year. Now, anybody who knows anything about schools knows you can't control those costs, right? 85% of your costs or thereabouts are personnel. And you're locked into contracts. What are you going to do? Where are you? Now, if you've got a big reserve, you're in fine shape. If you don't have a reserve, what are you supposed to do? Unconscionable. So this year, we went ahead and we approved a budget. We even managed to put some more money into K-12, which is wonderful. Still didn't give universities a budget. There was some stopgap stuff on MAP and university. Still haven't solved that, by the way. Don't let anybody tell you we have. But I'll tell you what districts around the state are doing. And if you're from a district, you raise your hand if I'm saying it wrong. They're not spending it all. So they've got the money. They need to spend the money. They know how they need to spend the money, and they know what they're giving up by not spending the money. But in a world where the state has already cut them mid-year, they'd be crazy not to hold some of it back to know what happened. Am I right? So it's paying a price even when you think we're doing better because we've created such instability. So we're losing early childhood stocks. We're not holding true and making college affordable or even predictable or reliable. We're not funding our universities, and we're putting K-12 in a situation where even when they get a budget, they don't trust it. There's more of a list because, of course, it matters enormously who comes to work in our schools. That's a tough environment to try and recruit the best and the brightest to come into our schools. And it's an awfully tough situation to keep people in. Think about being a principal or a superintendent or a teacher under those circumstances. If you're close to retirement, maybe you just leave a few years early. That's a problem. We're also rethinking how we hold what we think about. We think about whether our school's doing well, and that's a huge issue. But I'm going to deal with one last one really quickly because I can't help it. The last one I say for last, and those of you who know me at all, and a few of you do, an issue incredibly near to my heart is that we are not either putting enough money into our schools. We say it takes about $8,899 to educate an average kid. Right now, we put in roughly $6,000 $8,000 a kid. We guarantee at least $6,000 per kid. That's a huge shortfall. That's a huge shortfall. And we're still, the money we do have, we don't direct it to the districts that most need it. And I'm going to give you, this is what we do effectively. And this is really small and teeny, and I'm hoping you can see it. So District A, these are two actual districts, by the way. I didn't name them, but they're both from Lake County, and they're right next door to each other. So District A, you can guess, play this game with yourself, who's what? So the blue line on the left side, the blue line, I don't know if there's a little pointer there isn't. So on the blue line on the left is how much that district should be spending based on the needs of its students. It costs more to educate a kid living in poverty. It costs more to raise a kid to educate a kid who's got special needs or is an English language learner, etc. Right? So District A should be spending about $8,000 a kid. The red line is what it is spending. That district is able to spend close to $18,000 per kid. That is a nice school district to be in. District B, by contrast, given the needs of its students, should be spending over $16,000 a kid. That's what it would cost to get their kids where they need to go. What is it spending? Under 12. It's good that they're spending 12, but that's $4,000 a kid less than they need. Think about what that's translated to in terms of the number of staff, supports, activities, the kind of tutoring, the one-on-one support that we know. Reading Power does a great job. They know they do one-on-one support. Why? Because that's what it takes. And the worst part is that the tax effort of our current system works exactly the opposite. So these are the same two districts. The blue line is the state average tax rate that supports our schools. District A is able to tax itself at about 50%, 60% of the state average in order to spend almost twice as much as it needs to. District B is taxing itself well over the state average, 1.4% of the state average, 140%, in order to spend far less than it really needs to. There are serious conversations underway about reforming the way our formula works. This is why. Is it going to be easy? No. If you're District A, maybe you're fine with the way things work. I'm here to tell you whether you live in District A or you live in District B, we all rise and fall based on what we're doing for District B. We are all, and I know nobody here is in this room if you don't care about that, and if you don't want to get that right. So just know that's a serious conversation, and for my money, if we want all of our numbers to start going up and we want them to go up much more significantly, we have got to address that problem. You ask what's going to take to talk going incrementally and bigger, that's a big piece of it. I never believe money is the only piece of it. Advanced Illinois never believe that. But is it an important one? Absolutely. So with that, any questions? Any other gloomy statistics I can share with you? I am, by the way, fundamentally optimistic despite this, the fact that we've got hard work to do, because there are people like this who do it, and there has been a lot of hard work being done at the state level. So, any further? Thanks so much for having me.